Now that I've used every weapon in Chivalry 2, I can finally do a proper ranking. That's right, we can finally do a proper tier ranking. So many people have been asking me to rank every weapon in Chivalry 2, and to be honest, I'm not really into making these types of videos where it's tutorials or just, ranking. I just played the game for fun. We've pretty much played with every weapon in the game for 3 years, except I would say probably the Ambusher classes and Archer. So if you're an Archer main, or if you main the Ambusher, you're not gonna really get too much info because I've really never used them. But before we begin, I wanted to give a special shout out to Saturday for making this tier list a while back. Unfortunately, we did lose a legend in the Chivalry 2 community, so you guys can also check out his tier list too. I know he made a great one. But besides all that, let's go ahead and get into the tier list. Now, we have Bing Chilling, which is actually S++, the class above S+. So what this really means is there is no other weapon that can outmatch this level. And then obviously we have S tier, which is, you can never go wrong with S tier. A, B, C, never used, and actually ass. All right, up first we have the one-handed axe. You know what's funny? When I first started playing Chivalry 2, I remember watching a video of Strida. I think it was one of my first videos I started watching back when he had like 5,000 subscribers. So long ago. Crazy how time flies. But to get to the point, this was my first one-handed weapon, and it was thanks to him. I saw him playing it and he did absolutely insane with it. And I had to try it for myself. When I picked up the one-handed axe, I'm like, there is no way that this little baby axe can shred through enemies. The only downside to the one-handed axe is the range, but the speed and damage are insane. Like you can do so much damage if you're in close quarters, and it's one of the best one-handed weapons. I'm gonna put it in probably A just because of the range. I know there are other weapons that are gonna make it S and they have similar ranges, but like I said, this weapon is very short, and if you're going against people with halberds, Highland-Swords, or any long-range weapons in a 1vx situation, you're kind of doomed. Your only ally is your shield or teammates coming to the rescue to save you or kill you. Moving on to the battle axe. Now, the battle axe is an interesting weapon. It is one of the best weapons I think I've used in Chivalry 2. Like, I like to call every weapon one of the best, but no, when it comes to the battle axe, I mean it. I really want to give this weapon an S, but I know it's an A. It's the same reason why I didn't give the one-handed axe an S, because of the range. Like I said, if you're going against a greatsword, Highland-Sword, or anything long, you're gonna be doomed. It's always annoying to be in a 1vx situation, getting harassed by spearmen, or just stuff that you can't really counter or react in time, so I'm gonna give that an A. It is better than the one-handed axe by a lot, but a very solid weapon. It comes very close to an S tier. Now, the warbow. Is this the warbow? I don't even know if this is the warbow. My god! It is the goblin archer. Oh no, this is the regular bow. I'm just gonna put this in never used. I did use it a little bit when I was, you know what? I will confess. Fuck it. You'll know the truth. I did use the bow when I first started playing. That's the only time I used it, but this is pretty ass. I would say this is actually ass. You can get very high takedowns, but I'm just gonna put it in never used because I am not an archer main. Now, if this is the crossbow, I did use the crossbow. I gotta admit, I was goblin. I went goblin mode for a bit, but the crossbow is probably a B tier weapon. You can get a lot of one-shot weapons, sneaking in the back and just taking people out. You're just a little goblin. We have the Cudgel. Now, I never used this weapon as well, so I know it's like a baby Warclub. You can do a lot of damage very fast, but then again, now right before I explain why I'm putting this all the way in Bing Chilling, yeah, that's right, above S. I was initially gonna put this in never used, but there is a player out there and he changed my mind on the dagger. This player that I'm mentioning, his name is JC. This guy went 100-0 back-to-back in multiple games when he would play with me using the dagger. I honestly thought the dagger was just a C or even a B mid-range weapon, but when I started using it, I understood why the dagger is one of the best weapons in the game. You can basically almost out-gamble everybody, one-shot people from the back. It does so much damage from the back. So if you guys are running behind people in team objective with the dagger, and if you have good footwork, you can survive for a long time. There's nothing more satisfying than using the Ambusher class and getting kills non-stop. You're just one-shotting people left and right. But you have to be the great assassin, of course, Altair. Quick shout out to JC for changing my mind on the dagger. I honestly thought this was shit, but no, it is one of the goats. If you know how to play Ambusher correctly. I mean, if you don't know how to play Ambusher, you're not Bing chilling. My beloved Dane-Axe, where do I put you? Does it slap? Is it good? Yes, it does. It's an actual S for me. Throughout my 3 years of Chivalry 2, terrorizing lobby to lobby with the Dane-Axe, I can safely say this weapon is the guy. Now, it's not a Bing chilling weapon because of its range, but it's an absolute monster when you use in TO, especially when you throw the Dane-Axe at a knight or a vanguard. You're doing 100+ damage. I think that is more than the Javelin. I believe they nerfed it. I'm not really sure if they nerfed it or not, but when you throw the Dane-Axe at somebody, it's a 50-50 shot where you're gonna kill somebody. But I gotta say, the damage, speed, reposts are insane. You can do so good with this weapon with vanguard, even as knight. Whatever class you are and you pick up the Dane-Axe, you can never go wrong. And again, like I said, when you throw this thing, it's almost a one-shot, one-kill. I put this over the battle axe any day just because of its speed and throwing capability. All right, moving on to the Executioner Axe. Now, a lot of people don't know this about the Executioner Axe, but it's actually an S tier weapon because of its range and speed. The big thing about the Executioner Axe is a lot of people get thrown off with this weapon when it comes down to its fast attack and heavy attack. And what I mean by that is when you're doing light attacks, it almost feels like a Warclub or a one-handed weapon. It is extremely fast and a lot of people can fairly easily counter it or block it. Now, when it comes to the heavy attack, you do a ton of damage and it is very long. A lot of people have a hard time to either counter it or they will basically try to outgamble you and be impatient and it'll cost them their lives. I really have nothing bad to say about the Executioner Axe other than maybe the recovery time. The recovery time sucks for this weapon, but every other weapon I've mentioned on this list, they have awesome recovery time. When you do a heavy swing or heavy overhead with the Executioner Axe, it's gonna be pretty long to fucking pick it back up and block before you get hit. So if you're going against a one-hander or a Warclub or just something extremely fast, and if you do a heavy against them, they're gonna get you with the light unless, you know, they miss. But yeah, I'm gonna put that there. And if you guys want to know more about the Executioner Axe, be sure to check out my video on the best axe in Chivalry 2. I did a pretty good job showcasing all its strengths in that video. All right, now moving on to the Falchion. Yes, the baby messer. That's what I like to call it. The messer's twin little brother, but it's a one-handed version. Now, when it comes to the messer, I'm probably gonna put this at A, but I'm gonna put this above the one-handed axe. This weapon feels like a messer, but it's faster and a bit weaker. It's kind of in the middle, so it almost feels like you have a messer, but you've basically chopped the whole fucking blade in half. This weapon does good in crowd control and in 1vx situations. Another weapon you honestly cannot go wrong with. Now, the only reason why I'm not putting this above the battle axe is obviously the damage. This thing is a fucking beast. But moving on to the glaive, my god, the gamble stick, the spam machine. Now, where am I gonna put the famous Black Knight's glaive? You know, I would probably put this in C or B. Now, the reason why I say that is, it's funny enough, I used to play with the glaive. The only thing I found good about it was probably the overheads, heavy overheads and light overheads, and that's if you can land them. Now, obviously, this weapon is really good at crowd control or people rushing objectives. You can basically spam the crap out of this, and a lot of people are going to be careful or they will out counter you and kill you. So it's very easy to predict a glaive player. That's why I'm putting it in probably C. Honestly, let's bring it some justice and bring it back up to B. Obviously, it's better than the crossbow. What the hell am I thinking? But in all seriousness, no. If you want to get fast takedowns, you don't really care about getting kills, then the glaive is for you. It barely does any damage. It does 40 a swing. It is a slash weapon. It's not like the Warclub, right? It's not a blunt. It goes through multiple enemies on a slash, so you're gonna be getting a lot of fucking takedowns if you can survive. Though, you're gonna be sacrificing that for kills, and a lot of the times you can die because you're not doing that much damage to multiple enemies, so it's almost hitting somebody with the fucking stick. You know what? Why not? Really quickly, let me just put everything and never use that I haven't used in the game. We'll go ahead and do javelins. Let's see. Where the fuck you at, Mr. Archer weapon? Siege bow. I've never touched that thing. Warbow I've kind of used, but not really. Bugger all. Oh, the shovel smacks. Shovel smacks. The peasant shovel. I'm pretty sure this is the shovel in game, so we'll leave that alone. I think that's everything that I have not used in Chivalry 2. Obviously, we've used this. This is actually ass. I'm just gonna put that out there. This thing is horrendous. Never use this thing. I fucking hate people that kill me with this. It is one of the most annoying weapons to go against. Yes, guys, I said it. I fucking said it. I said it. All right, if you're a little knife gambler, you are not being chilling. All right, moving on to the heavy mace, the best blunt weapon in Chivalry 2. You can hold me for that. I actually broke Chivalry 2 using this weapon. I believe the highest we did was 190 takedowns. I'm pretty sure we had less than 10 deaths, but you guys can always go back and check out the video. It was the video where I broke Chivalry 2. Now, I'm gonna put this in probably S tier, not Bing Chilling. It's really hard to rank this. It's a blunt weapon, but it's so fast and it does so much damage. Like, there's so many different playstyles with the heavy mace where you can be that patient player, play slow, do light attacks, or you can be an absolute madman like me, gamble left and right, and just maybe you will hit 200 takedowns. But in all seriousness, no, the heavy mace is the best blunt weapon in the game in my opinion, because it just outperforms every other blunt weapon in speed, combo attacks, reposts, and damage. The two-handed hammer comes very close, but I'm gonna put it right behind the executioner axe. Now, the problem with this weapon is the recovery time. Now, I know the heavy mace has a slow recovery time as well, but it's not slow as this. So what I mean by recovery time is when you do a heavy swing or a heavy drag and you try to block, repost, or counter, you're not gonna have enough time to do that because you're still in your swing animation. Thus, you get hit for it and punished. So if you do it with the heavy mace, say I do a heavy attack with the heavy mace, I get to block faster than the two-handed hammer. You guys can hold me up on that, but that's just my experience playing Chivalry 2 when it comes to TO. Now, this weapon performs a lot better with the Vanguard, to be honest, than Knight, but all to their own. Now, moving on to the Calvary-Sword. Honestly, I was extremely hyped for this weapon when it first came out. The best way I can describe the Calvary-Sword is it feels like a one-handed greatsword, but at the same time, you're basically tickling people. Now, the first time I ever went 100-0 in Chivalry 2, meaning 100 takedowns, 0 deaths, was with the Calvary-Sword. The great thing about the Calvary-Sword is obviously its range and crowd control. It does a better job than the Glaive, believe it or not, just because of the damage output. I'd rather take 45 than 40 any day. And one other thing about the Calvary-Sword is the feints. Sometimes it can be very confusing on how to read this weapon. For instance, I know a lot of people have trouble going against the Rapier, and we can go ahead and put that up next. I'm obviously gonna put this above the Calvary-Sword. Now, it's not an A tier weapon just because, again, of its output, but this weapon's speed is pretty insane. If you guys want to take out a good player or gank somebody in a 1vx, bring a Rapier, because 9 out of 10 times they're gonna die or fall for your feints. You can honestly do really good with this weapon. You can do 150 plus takedowns. I've seen my friends do it in the past, and if they did it, I'm sure you guys can do it. Now, playing it, I had fun, but again, it just fucking lacks damage. Same reason why I put this in B. I honestly wanted to put this in A. I wish it was a one-handed greatsword, but that's not the case. It honestly just feels like a weaker version of the Falchion. All right, moving on to the Katars. I'm just gonna go ahead and just put this right here. We're just gonna leave that there. Yep. Fucking yes. Moving on to the Longsword. Now, the Longsword honestly feels like the cheese machine. The most cheesiest weapon in Chivalry 2, probably. No, it is not the most cheesiest, obviously. There's a lot more cheesy weapons out there. But when it comes to the Longsword, honestly, man, you can turn into the God of War if you know how to play this right. The amount of people I out-gamble and just spam, stab, or slash, easy S tier. It's not good as the, I would say, heavy mace. It's better than all these other weapons listed. You can do really good with the Longsword. Like, I've had games where I've gotten so many multi-kills on overheads, stabs. 90% of the time using the Longsword, you're gonna get a lot of people that are gonna fall for your stabs and overheads. Remember, guys, when you play TO, a lot of people just fucking slash. They just slash. It's like slash simulator. So when you pick up a Longsword, do yourself a favor. Only do stabs, overheads, and see how far you really get with the Longsword. Obviously, you want to do mix-ups too. Don't just deny the slash button. You want to slash as well. And that's how you throw a lot of people off too, is slash. This weapon is extremely fast, extremely good, and I think that's enough glaze for the Longsword. A very solid weapon. Now, the one-handed mace. I know I said the heavy mace is the best blunt weapon, but we're talking about the best one-handed weapon in the game. Don't get me wrong. The Warhammer comes very close, but the mace is the cheese machine. This thing is an absolute beast. I'll always glaze my one-handed mace. This is like a favorite of mine. I mean, all these weapons right here are a favorite of mine, but I'm gonna put this probably not even in Bing Chilling. Let's see. That's unrealistic, okay? We'll put this probably above this, obviously. This is way better than the two-handed hammer just because of its speed, and you can just fucking out-gamble almost anybody with this weapon. You can be a knight running running around yelling, "For the light, brother!" Just doing overheads, slashes, running away, getting away with it, and laughing. Like, you can be an absolute menace with a Warhammer. I'm pretty sure you've seen people run loadouts, for instance, with knives, one-handed mace, running around killing people, spamming the laugh emote, and being an absolute goblin. Alright, next up we have the Maul. Claimed to be one of the best weapons in Chivalry 2, if not the best blunt weapon in the game, since it does the most damage out of every weapon in Chivalry 2. Right before I rank it, I'm gonna give you guys my explanation why I'm gonna put this in S tier and not in Bing chilling. And that is because of the Maul's recovery time and speed. Now, don't get me wrong, when you use the Maul, you feel like an absolute beast, just dropping people left and right. I mean, each time I use the Maul, I end up getting an insane amount of multi-kills, and it's just a blast. The only downside I see with the Maul, I think, is, like I said again, the range on the weapon and how slow the speed is. But sometimes that can be a good time for the Maul, because a lot of times people will tend to outgamble you or just go for a slash and really ignore your heavy swing, because a lot of the times people really don't have patience in Chivalry 2 and they don't see the Maul as a threat, and thus they get punished and they die. I mean, on a light overhead, you're doing 90 damage on a knight. Sometimes it's a 2-shot 2-kill, and sometimes you're gonna hit them 3 times if they're healed by a horn. But, you know, I really wish this weapon was a bit faster. I mean, if it was a bit faster and longer, by all means, this would have been the best weapon in the game. But overall, it is a solid weapon. You can never go wrong with the Maul. I highly recommend this weapon on close quarter objectives. If you're on like very open terrain, you're gonna have trouble with a lot of players using long range weapons like the Highland-Sword, Greatsword, two-handed spear, and many more down the list. But we're gonna leave that in S tier. Ah, yes, the Morningstar. Now, where to put our beloved blunt weapon. When it comes to the Morningstar, guys, this weapon is basically identical to this weapon. I would say it's a copy and paste. They're slightly different. I know this does more damage on its special, but when I use the mace, I just perform way better using the one-handed mace rather than the Morningstar. But hey, I mean, they're basically the same weapon, so I wish you could dual wield in this game. It would be cool. A mace in my right hand and a Morningstar in my left. That'd be fucking nuts. Moving on to the one-handed spear. Now, when it comes to the one-handed spear, I'm probably gonna put this in, I'd probably put this in B tier. It would be a top B tier weapon though, but at one point, I would put this up in Bing chilling if Torn Banner never nerfed the stab through teammates. Before, you would be able to stab through your teammates and get insane amount of kills and takedowns. You would basically be a goblin. Your teammates would be your shield. You would do unlimited team damage, stabbing your one-handed spear right through your teammates, stealing their kill, and then pulling the spear out of your teammate and continuing to be a menace. But no, in all seriousness, when I would play with the one-handed spear, that's all I would do. I would stab through teammates and I would get games like 170, 180, and I think I broke 200 takedowns with the one-handed spear, I'm pretty sure. It was one of the easiest weapons to get 200 takedowns in Chivalry 2 back in the days where you would be able to stab through teammates and go unnoticed. Sometimes I was so confused. I'm like, who the fuck just killed me? And I just see a spear go right through the enemy's fucking stomach and kill me. I honestly wish they brought that back, but hey, I can see why they fucking took away that mechanic in Chivalry 2. My beloved one-handed spear, once a top tier weapon, all the way down to B tier. Now, it's still a good weapon, but the only annoying thing is when people jump in front of you, you can't stab through them anymore. So you're just stuck there and like, guys, can you let me go? They'll just get in front of you and you're kind of just stuck there. You can't stab through teammates. You can't even do an overhead because their big heads in the way. So you just gotta wait till your teammates kill the enemy, or you have to run around politely. Now, moving on to the pickaxe, man, we have overheads all day, baby. Honestly, this is a pretty fucking solid weapon if you know how to play engineer right. Like, you can run around, pop people's heads off with just doing overheads and running around. The overhead damage on the pickaxe is fucking insane. I was honestly shocked to see how much damage you can output with the pickaxe. Honestly, the speed damage is awesome, though the fucking range sucks. Don't get me wrong, the range sucks. Everything else is good. You can repost pretty fast too. I wouldn't recommend 1v1ing with it, but if you're an engineer player and you want to get quick kills, you kind of want to play like an ambusher when you play with the pickaxe, I gotta say, but you can do very good with this weapon. I've easily dropped 140 plus with the pickaxe on maps like Lion Spire, Dark Forest, Red Helm. Solid weapon, though you're gonna get yourself killed a lot in crowded situations. Now, the poleaxe used to be an S tier weapon, but I'm gonna put this on top of A. Now, what I mean by that is this weapon used to do so much stamina negation at a point where you'd be just dropping people's weapons left and right. People would be holding the block button. I don't think so, buddy. Take that shit out of your hands. But in all seriousness, at one point, poleaxe poleaxe was good. It's still a good weapon. It's still a solid A. You can do very good with this weapon. But before, when you were able to break people's stamina, just overheading and, you know, stabbing, slashing, it was awesome. The special is also awesome on the poleaxe. The range is phenomenal. Like, you can fucking jump 20 feet and hit somebody with the poleaxe. You know, this weapon is one of the reasons why I'm so good at this game. It was basically my teacher on how to counter, how to repost properly, and how to play the game properly. So if you ever want to learn how to be good in Chivalry 2, my biggest tip for you is jump in a duel server, pull out the poleaxe, and, you know, learn. And after you do that, go in TO, go in duel, keep cycling that, and after the poleaxe, move on to another weapon and try to do the same. Now, every weapon behaves differently, but there's a lot of similarities to most of these weapons on this list. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on A tier. I wish Thornbanner never nerfed this weapon. I know they buffed it a long time ago. This used to be a fucking C, but thank God for the buff. They took it to an S and they brought it back down to an A. Moving on to the pull hammer. Now, this is probably the best dueling weapon in the game. If you're a dueler or duelist, I'd probably put this above Bing Chilling. But when it comes to TO, I'm obviously gonna put this right under the battle axe. I think the battle axe performs a bit better just because it's a slasher weapon and this is a blunt. Even though this is a blunt weapon, the speed on the light attacks are insanely fast. If you want, you can be a bully in Chivalry 2. Just do light attacks, light overheads, and you're just gonna be fucking bopping people left and right. I really have no complaints about this weapon, to be honest. I want to put this in S tier, but I know there are slasher weapons that outperform this weapon in TO. Like, every weapon above the pole hammer honestly outperforms the pole hammer. Now, don't get me wrong, pole hammer is a very solid weapon in TO. I just wish I used it more. You know, I have about, I would say, 200 hours with the pole hammer, so not that many hours, but I have a good solid 5,000 to 8,000 kills with this weapon. I'm solely leaving this at A just because of my performance with it. I think that's about it. Moving on to the quarterstaff. We're just gonna put this right here. No, just put this right here. Okay, we're gonna leaving it right there. A short sword. We're gonna put that right there too. Yeah, we're just gonna pretend these weapons never existed in Chivalry 2. You know what? Actually, this is a C. But yeah, these weapons, we're just gonna pretend they never existed in Chivalry 2. All right, moving on to the Sledge-Hammer. Basically a baby version of the Maul. I would say it's better than the pickaxe. It's probably the best engineer weapon, but ever since the Goedendag came out, that's changed. Now the Goedendag is the best weapon in the game. Let's see where I would put this. I'm honestly gonna put this above two-handed hammer. It's not gonna go over the Maul, even though I would like to do that. But again, the Goedendag, the recovery time on those heavy attacks are kind of ass, and this is a bit shorter than the Maul. So this is shorter than the Maul, but you're gonna get multi-kills all day, and it's faster than the Maul. The Goedendag is extremely fast on combos. You know, I see a lot of people struggling in Chivalry 2 when they go against the Goedendag. Like, they don't really see it as a threat. They just see it as a fucking stick. Like, okay, buddy, you got a stick. What are you gonna do with it? But if you guys watch my first video of the Goedendag, I think my first game I ever did, we got a wicked sick, and then I recently uploaded another video in Chivalry 2 using it, and sometimes, honestly, it feels like I'm using the best weapon in the game, and at other times the weapon kind of feels ass. Now, the reason why I put the Goedendag in S tier is when it comes down to defense, that's where the Goedendag shines. Like, you're gonna be doing a lot better using the Goedendag defending rather than attacking, because you're gonna have multiple enemies coming at you, and, you know, that's your cue to start swinging heavy lights, and, you know, you just drop people left and right. Thing hits like a truck. It's basically a Maul, but faster and shorter, and it's the very first, I think, unique weapon in Chivalry 2. It's also a blade weapon and a blunt weapon, and what I mean by that is the stab. If you guys look at the stab, it has a pointy, shiny spike to it. You know, it feels like a baby spear. Oh god, this is gonna be controversial. Oh god, we have the two-handed spear. Where do I put this? There's only one place to put this, and you know where it's going. Bing Chilling. Guys, do I really need to explain why I'm putting this in Bing Chilling above S? We're putting this in S++. I'm pretty sure you know why this is in Bing Chilling, but hey, I'll give you the rundown. When you use the two-handed spear, mobility, range, damage absolutely disgusting, man. It honestly feels like you're cheating sometimes. You don't know how much fucking shit talking happens in Chivalry 2 for using a two-handed spear. If you're a two-handed spear main out there and you look at PC chat or you just get messages on Xbox or PlayStation using a two-handed spear, it's insane, man. Like, people just hate on this weapon. Like, I feel like sometimes people hate more on two-handed spear players than archer players. But hey, I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game. If you know how to play a two-handed spear properly, if you know how to work footwork properly, you're gonna be one of the best players in your team, and overall you're gonna be one of the best players in Chivalry 2 because you're gonna be untouchable and unkillable at times. The only really thing you need to watch out for is getting ganked and obviously archers, but probably one of the easiest weapons to go 100-0 with, or just farm takedowns and kills. 50 on a light stab, heavy on a 70 stab is pretty insane, and you can just do it back to back, not getting touched. Make sure you don't get ganked, and hey, Leonidas it is after that. It'll be a jumping Leonidas. And one other thing to note is you can actually hit people through their block. You can jump kind of over an enemy and stab them in the head. I'll probably have a video on the two-handed spear pretty soon, just because I never really did one for you guys. I didn't want to show you my secrets, but be on a lookout for that. If that's something you guys want to see, I'll be sure to post it. Now, moving on to the shovel, people say it's the best weapon in the game. You know what it feels like? It feels like a gambling blunt weapon. That's the best way I can put it. Now, I'd probably put this in never use just because I don't have that much experience with it, but since I have friends that play Chivalry 2, that's right, I have friends, I'll put this right here. You know, when I ask an engineer main, they would put Goedendag, Sledge, Pick, and Shovel. I know I'm putting Shovel at last. I know it hurts, but for all you Shovel mains, I'm sorry, I really don't know where to put it. One-handed sword, man. Where do I put this thing? Where do I put this thing? The cheese machine. I like to call this thing the cheese machine, man, because I hate going against this. It's not bad as a knife. It's not bad as the fucking knife, okay? The knife is a menace. This thing, this little shit, I hate it. But the one-handed sword, it's better than the glaive, okay? It's better than the glaive, but I'll put it right here. You know what? It's actually better than probably all these weapons up here, but it's a solid B tier, I guess. You know, the damage is pretty weak, but the speed is fast. You can be an absolute troll with this weapon. Kind of like the one-handed mace, run around, laugh, and emote, and get away with a lot of things. Like, you can be very ballsy, gamble, and kill multiple enemies with a one-handed sword. Even the special on this weapon is crazy. It honestly, like I said, it's very similar to the Longsword. Like, when you use the Longsword, it just feels like a two-handed, one-handed sword. That's the best way I can put it. Honestly, if it did 50 damage, I'd probably put this in Bing Chilling. That'd be insane if they ever made it 50 damage. Moving on to the War Axe. I'm gonna put this somewhere you guys won't even expect it. I'm just kidding. We're gonna put this in S tier. These two weapons are very identical to each other, the way that they work mechanic-wise. The only difference is the slash. This is a blunt weapon. This is a slasher. They're both extremely fast, and they pretty much act the same way when you do a heavy, like speed-wise. The one thing I'll say about the Warhammer is if you just want to have fun in Chivalry 2, you don't care about trying, you just want to lay back, have fun, but at the same time, be top 5 or even top 10, the War Axe is the perfect choice. Like, I don't even see this weapon as a try-hard weapon. The Dane-Axe is more of a try-hard weapon than the War Axe. Like, all these weapons listed, even this weapon, like, all these weapons listed are a try-hard weapon. When I see a War Axe, it's more of a laid-back weapon, but if you choose to be a try-hard, a sweat, you can be one of the best players in Chivalry 2. Now, I'm putting this on top of the Dane-Axe and Executioner Axe just because the weapon feels perfect in my hands. Every time I use the War Axe, it's just perfection. It doesn't need a buff. It doesn't need a nerf. It doesn't need anything. It's a solid weapon. I always do good with it, and I always have good games with this weapon. But if you guys want, you guys can go ahead and check out my video on the most OP weapon in Chivalry 2, and I believe we were kind of close to going 100-0 in that video. A pretty good video of me just running around like a maniac, not even trying, just spamming the weapon, and you can see how far I really got just being an absolute fucking madman. Now the Warhammer. Now, some people consider this the best one-handed weapon in the game, and I can see why you guys consider this the best one-handed weapon in Chivalry 2. I've used the Warhammer a ton. I've gotten insane multi-kills, like, you know, 10, 12. I think one time I got 14. I gotta show you guys. It was like Galencourt. I was defending, and they were trying to plant the bomb. Like, they have the barrels, and they were running in a straight line trying to plant the barrels, and I was just smacking people left and right with the Warclub. It was one of the most insane multi-kills I think I've ever gotten in Chivalry 2. I want to put this above the one-handed mace, but the only drawback I have on this weapon is the range. In all honesty, this weapon feels more like a one-handed Maul than a mace. Therefore, I put it right beside the middle. This is from worst to best, you know, basically my 3 years of experience using these weapons. This is just recent, the fucking Dagger. I know a lot of you guys are probably shocked I put this in Bing Chilling, but there's a reason for that, and it's thanks to the best players I play with in Chivalry 2. Now, on to the goats of goats in Chivalry 2, and that is the Warclub. When it comes down to the Warclub, some people consider it cheese, others just see it as unlegit, and when I look at it, I see opportunity. I only have a love relationship with this weapon. No love or no hate, just love. The bonuses, the combos, the reposts, even recovery time is sometimes, it makes me so mad sometimes when I go against this weapon. Like a good Warclub player user or a spammer, I just get infuriated. Kind of like the Longsword. Like when you go against somebody with a Longsword, they're just spamming, blocking, you can't do anything. It feels like they have unlimited stamina sometimes, and they don't even hit you with one counter. Sometimes you can't even do anything because you're going against multiple enemies. But, you know, to keep it short, I absolutely fucking love this weapon. Honestly, when I use it, there's guilt inside me. Like, should I keep using this? Do I need to continue? It honestly feels like a Thanos glove. Now, the only drawback is probably Vanguards. If you're going against a bunch of Vanguards, you're not going to be dropping them fast. But then again, when you're playing Vanguard, you can always dash, swing, and there's just so much you can get away with this weapon. And that's thanks to its range and speed. You know, I am glazing the fuck out of this weapon, and there's a reason why. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen me on my streams or, you know, in some videos of me using the Warclub. I did go 100-0 with this weapon pretty easily. I mean, it's one of the easiest weapons to use in Chivalry 2. The only thing I would say is, hey, try not to waste a lot of your stamina and try your best to be untouchable. You want to do a lot of heavy overheads, get that 90 damage down on knights on those overheads, and follow them up with lights. A very good crowd control weapon. Nothing really negative to say about it. Now, moving on to the Halberd. When it comes down to perfection, there's nothing more that comes to mind other than the Halberd, and that's why I'm giving it Bing Chilling. I've had so many good games with this weapon. Sometimes I have bad games, I'm not gonna lie. At one point, this weapon was actually a fucking B or C tier, and I'm pretty sure you guys remember that when it went to C and B. When it first came out, this weapon was really bad. Torn Banner, thankfully they buffed it, they fixed the weapon, and it easily went from C to fucking Bing Chilling. It went to S++. There's nothing that can beat S++. It's the final boss after that. If you're a patient player, if you know how to counter properly, repost properly, you can almost be invincible with the Halberd, unless you get jumped by the whole enemy team. If you're getting jumped by the whole enemy team, it's GG's, homie. You're dead. It's over. Or an archer takes you out. When I use the Halberd on defense, I try to act as a wall, basically, where I try not to let any enemies get around me or past me, and I use my Halberd as my shield and my weapon at the same time. It's like kind of like a barrier. Like I have a wall and I move in a straight line. Like say for instance, we're playing Fallmeyer, we're on the bridge, and I know the whole team's there, but I try to go forward, backwards, and a lot of the swings on the Halberd has swing back, so when you do a full heavy swing, sometimes people coming from behind like an enemy will also get hit. It's one of the best weapons in Chivalry 2, I'd say. It's perfect, and that's why it is Bing Chilling. Moving on to the Messer, the sweat of sweatiest weapons in Chivalry 2. It's about time, man. It is about time we get to our beloved Messer. Guys, every time I fucking use this weapon, I just felt fucking guilt. It was like my ketamine lightsaber. Yes, unlimited power I had. Now the real question is, where do I put this? Where do I put this? I think I'm gonna put it in C. You know, we're just gonna leave this right here. Just kidding. It's going into Bing Chilling. Now, depending on what type of player you are, that is, if you're more of a footman player, vanguard player, or even knight player, it's all about performance, right? So what your play style is. I have multiple play styles when it comes to all three classes, and when I play with the knight and when I play with vanguard with a messer, you know, I can never outperform myself using the Halberd, meaning when I use the Halberd, I do way better as a footman than using a messer with vanguard and knight combined. combined. And I think that's just because of the survivability and range. Don't get me wrong, the Messer is an absolute fucking monster. It's insane. Like, you're killing people left and right. The light overheads are 70 damage, and it's just so fast. The repost, recovery time, it feels like cheating almost. And that's why it's Bing chilling. And you can never go wrong with any of these weapons. Now we're on to the final two. The two weapons that I've played the most in Chivalry 2. I probably have like 800 hours on the Highland-Sword, and I have a good 1,000 hours, 100 hours with the Greatsword. So like what, 1,800? That's like probably, that's half of my Shiv fucking life cycle right there. I have about 4,000 hours, guys. But this is hard, man. Where do I put my two babies? Where do I put my two babies? Let's see. At one point, I would put it above even Bing chilling. It would have its own fucking class tier because it was so broken. You just felt like the Doomslayer at one point, and you would just be chopping everybody in half with, I think it was like 80 a slash, and it was 90 a heavy. It was just so long ago, but I think it was 85 a heavy, and it was 70 a light attack just with a slash. That was insane, but I miss those days. But you know where it's at right now, it's pretty good. It does the same damage as the Messer, a bit slower, but still, it's still fucking solid. It does really good in TO, and I'm gonna put this right over, probably above Halberd, just because I have so much time with this weapon. Like, I have so much experience with the Highland-Sword myself, and I know what I can get away with and what I can't get away with when using this weapon. And trust me, you can get away with a lot. It's shocking. I'd say this is my favorite weapon in the entire game. Obviously, the Guts Sword, the anime. I love guts and I love big swords. What did he say? Moving on to the Greatsword. And you know, one last thing I'll say about the Highland-Sword is, look, you do 55, a light slash, but the biggest strength this weapon really has are the overheads. Like, when you do 100 damage on a heavy overhead is insane. And it's the right amount of damage the Highland-Sword needed. Like, we needed that for the Highland-Sword. I mean, 90 was not just cutting it. And I am thankful for Torn Banner for, you know, going back and giving it a small buff again. I think it's perfect where it's at. And, you know, there's times where I wanted to do more damage, but hey, I'm not really complaining. I still love the weapon, and that's why it's Bing chilling, mainly because of its heavy overheads. And a lot of people like to out-gamble this weapon or gamble against it, meaning if I like slash an enemy, people really don't know how to counter this weapon properly, or they will be impatient and they will fucking try to hit you before your swing. And overhead, which costs them stamina, health, and at certain times, death. But yeah, that's where we put the Highland-Sword. Now, think of as what I just explained to you right now, all that I said about the Highland-Sword, but it does the job way faster, and at times you feel like you are the guy in Chivalry 2. We have the Greatsword, by far the best weapon in Chivalry 2 when it comes to team objective in 64. Whether if you're using Knight or Vanguard, this weapon has no chill. It is an easy Bing chilling, if not, it is over Bing chilling. Like, if you see this line, like, these weapons are all the way back here, and this man is still standing up here, and that's thanks to its range, speed, damage, repost, recovery. Like, man, you can never go wrong with this fucking Greatsword. It is very fun to use. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's very easy to read the Greatsword. Like, it's easy to counter some of the attacks, stabs, but when you're playing it in TO, and there's a bunch of people you're going against, you're gonna be killing people that you're not even looking at half the time. You're gonna be swinging that shit, and I'm like, who the fuck did I just kill? And you're just gonna keep fucking swinging. You know, I asked the best player, what do you think of the Greatsword? And this is when I first started playing Chivalry 2, and they never even touched the Greatsword. They just left it when it first came out in launch, I'm pretty sure. But he basically told me that the Greatsword is cheese. It is the best weapon in the game by far. And I always stood with that word, because once he told me, you know, the reason why it was the best weapon in the game, and I started using it, I started to see what he was really talking about. I'm like, holy fucking shit. Like, this guy is right. This weapon is cheese. And I know I'm dragging a lot of these weapons out, guys, but I'm trying to give you my best knowledge and experience to all you new players, all you veterans, and all you guys that, you know, picked up the game recently, or even if you're struggling. But, you know, to keep it short, when you use the Greatsword, and there are different playstyles, at times you can do overheads, slashes, and if you're going against people with short weapons, like say Katars, Rapiers, even one-handed Sword, even I think the Dane-Axe, you're gonna be untouchable. Like, you'll be hitting people that can't even reach you. All they can do is repost or counter and get close to you. If you have good footwork, you can constantly back up, overhead, back up, overhead. I know it's kind of playing like a pussy, but if you truly want to be unkillable in this game and you want to do the best and go really far, that is the knight way to do it. Or you can play as a vanguard, and when you play as a vanguard with the knight, oh, I'm sorry, with the greatsword, it honestly feels like you're flying, like you're walking on water. You have a greatsword and you're just chopping people's heads off. Like, the vanguard plays so fast that you have no time to fight people. You're just running around them, slashing them, overheading them back to back, and you're just doing that same cycle over and over again, and you're just gambling constantly till you're dying. The two playstyles work so well because the weapon is so fucking good. It's an absolute monster. By far my favorite weapon when it comes down to these two weapons. You know, I wish I could put the Dane-Axe up here, but like I said, the range doesn't quite cut it for a lot of these weapons. And yeah, I mean, that's where I put my ranking, guys. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys disagree or agree, but that's basically my experience of playing Chivalry 2 from the start to right now. You know, I've been playing for 3 years. I've played with a lot of these weapons when they were nerfed, when they were buffed, you know, when they were broken, and honestly, I've had a lot of fun with all of these weapons. But hopefully I've helped a lot of you guys out there, or, you know, you learned something new. And if you guys want to see some gameplay of some of these weapons I mentioned down below, like a standalone video of only using the greatsword again, Halberd, or Warclub for examples, just let me know down in the comments section. And one last thing I want to say again, guys, thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. You know, I really wasn't gonna make this video, but so many of you have been asking me, do a tier list, and I said, fine, I will do a tier list. All of you guys have been asking for tutorials too, but hey, maybe one day I might do a Chivalry 2 tutorial on what my playstyle really is, and I can show you all my dark secrets.
Teach you I will. Grandmaster Yoda I am. Ketamine I need.
But if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, guys, and I will see you all in the next one. You all have a great day, and peace out.